You know visibility matters, but you don't want to live on that content treadmill. If you're a founder, marketer, or personal brand trying to build authority online, you've probably felt this tension. Today's guest, Gal Ko, believes there's a smarter way. Gal has been in digital marketing since 2008 and specializes in founder-led marketing, helping B2B teams build lasting authority without burnout. He's worked with global companies like AppsFlyer, TikTok, and Microsoft. He's the founder of Podstar, a community of over 240 podcast-ready founders and marketers, including leaders from Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Riverside, many of whom regularly speak on podcasts worldwide. In today's episode, we're breaking down what founder-led marketing actually is, why podcast guesting might actually be the most underrated authority strategy, and how to build credibility in a noisy digital world without creating content 24/7. If you care about positioning, thought leadership, and sustainable visibility, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Gal, welcome to the show. Can you start by telling the audience a little bit about you?
So my name is Gal. I'm currently based in Portugal, but I'm from Israel. I've been teaching digital marketing at Google and Reichman University for the last 3 years. I've been doing digital marketing since I was 14, not because I wanted, just because I needed to help in my family, passing some issues. And nowadays, what I do after working with several startups and B2B companies and helping raise over $20 million in funding, I've decided to tackle some issues that founders have with their branding and their content strategy and doing it with podcasts. So I match founders to podcasts.
I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I think our audience is going to learn so much more about podcasting as a great marketing avenue. So can we go back a little bit and clearly define it for our audience? What would you say is founder-led marketing, and how is that different from traditional content marketing?
So first of all, I would say that these days, when in the AI era and in the AI, well, we can actually create everything. Even Coca-Cola are using AI to create marketing campaigns, and the visuals are now in a higher level, and everyone can operate like a marketing agency inside a startup. I would argue that the one thing that is most essential is where the founders pain points and solutions and their story and sharing all they actually known and their industry expertise, because your expertise as your knowledge, all of those things that you already accomplished, this is the story that you should share, and this is the story that your audience wants to know, not how fast your AI is running and how many features you got. It's not that. It's about your story. It's about how you tackle this specific problem in a certain way that others maybe not. Maybe everyone, even the guy who are creating cups, like glass cups, such as this one today, are also implementing AI in the process. So AI is not a thing, and creating content that is vanilla with AI, it's not a thing. We have to step up our game as founders and be there in the front.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You touched upon a lot of things that really remind me of all areas of content creation. So having that personal experience goes a long way now. So much content that is being shared online is AI, and it's all very similar, like you said. I think what makes brands stand out is having that authentic storytelling, being able to connect with the founder of the brand, and then that also furthers that relationship that you have with the business. People remember businesses more when they see, an actual face behind the business, and they can actually relate and kind of put themselves in their shoes. It definitely helps to create that overall customer experience. So really interesting topic. I think right now we see a lot of people using AI for marketing, and it's so common, but I think people are craving more of that personal connection because everything seems to kind of be AI right now. So
Absolutely. Today, when we scroll, we see so many posts, and some of them doesn't get likes, some of them doesn't even get engagement. But when you have a conversation with a person and you share that, and you share the insights that you gained from being in point A, leveling up to point B with how you do stuff and how you help your clients achieve that, that's the thing that we're searching, because we don't want just AI to shout at us, this is your pain, this is your problem. No, we want to see how real people, coping with life.
yeah, absolutely. I think that real user feedback is something that you can only really get from communication person to person. So often when you put something into AI too, or you put it into ChatGPT and you say, well, how could this product solve their problem? You're getting what ChatGPT would think the problem is instead of actually going to the consumer themselves. That in-person feedback is so valuable, especially also in the digital space too. Shareable content is huge. I think if people can relate to something that another user is experiencing, that also helps to really further that content along as well. So, what would you say is the biggest mistake that founders are making when they're trying to put some thought leadership content out there? They've decided they want to put themselves out there, but what would you say is a big mistake that they've been making now?
So look, I would be honest because I've been in the marketing industry long enough to know what's a hype and what's just a system that can serve you. And most of the playbooks that we see today are outdated in terms of, you have to be there, you have to post every day. I don't really think that posting consistently every day as a founder, that is something that you should do because you have your startups to, manage, and you have so many difficulties and so many bigger fish to fry rather than to sit down and post each day. And, just going on the hamster wheel of creating content, it is hard. And I've bet that some of our listeners have experienced, bad service providers, for example, where they promise you that if you buy a video package of 6 videos and we'll produce the whole thing and it's going to be like Hollywood. And eventually, when you post it, you don't have the followers to actually back it up or to react to it. So I would say that nowadays, and you can see all the big guns are doing this. It's not just me, it's Tony Robbins, it's Alex Hormozy, all those big brands, big names. They all go on a one-on-one conversation that is one-to-many, that is generating a long form where you can repurpose this exact podcast. You can repurpose into newsletter, into a blog post that will also help serves in the SEO and the AEO, the Ask Engine Optimization, for example, because YouTube now currently works with AI as well. So it is actually optimized for research in AI search engines. So when you go on one podcast, it is like one Zoom call. That's all it takes from you on the founder side. It's not, this content manager that drives you crazy because she wants 3 hours of your time because she needs to create the document in order to create all the content and, get it going. So instead, just hop on a conversation on a podcast where they already established an audience. It's not your audience, it's their audience, it's their authority, and you repurpose it and you gain authority by doing this. And it is a no-brainer and it is so easy to do it. And I would say just leverage it because it is a long form, repurposed, and it is just a content mechanism.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think a lot of founders and also a lot of digital creators can feel really stuck on that content treadmill where you feel like you have to post every single day and then each day arrives, you're like, oh, scrambling to try to figure out what to put on your content calendar, or feeling overwhelmed by having to actually post the content and then engage. And it's just kind of it's very time consuming. Founders have so many other things to do and to focus on, that creating something that is a high leverage visibility strategy, a podcast, recording that long form video that you can then break up into smaller pieces. And then you can also repurpose it in so many ways, right? You can make a carousel out of it. You can make a blog post out of it, and really being conscious of where the conversations are now. It used to be, really focusing on SEO. Now everybody is searching things in AI. So how can you get involved in that field? Like, how can your content reach new people? And I think being conscious of that is so important. So I really appreciate that you brought that up. Would you say that once you have the podcast and you break it up into different smaller pieces and you're ready to share it, do you still think posting daily is a strong strategy, or would you recommend fewer posts and maybe allocating more time to creating that content?
I think, I work with lots of different brands and lots of also solopreneurs. Some of them are my friends and some I follow and aspire to be like them. And I would argue that these days, because of the AI booming and the easiness of creating content, it makes everything so easy. I would argue that now it is about the value that you provide, and you have to have a certain high value rate, high value to words. I would say that's the count, or high value to sentences or for minutes, because people are bored with there are so many apps going on at the moment. Everyone invented their own app. It's a no code world. I can fight with Uber and create my own app. And it's like we commoditized everything. So, yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think too with that high value content piece is so important because there's right now, I think when you think about digital marketing, you kind of have to take a step back and you're competing for the attention of people, but it's not, you can't just think about like even a smartphone, for example. You're competing with the attention of people who are maybe spending their time watching, Netflix or TV or whatever. That all goes into this one big attention bucket. So I think creating high value content that's actually engaging, that encourages people to actually sit and consume it because there's so much content out there is really important. So maybe focusing on those like key pieces that go out each week and maybe not thinking, oh, every day I have to put something out just to have a high volume of quantity. Maybe focusing on that quality piece is something that I think is a really great strategy moving forward. So I want to talk about your business a little bit. Through Podstar, you've built a community of 240 plus podcast ready founders. Why is podcast guesting such a powerful authority tool right now? And then what would you say separates maybe an okay podcast guest from someone who actually converts listeners into opportunities?
Okay, so the reason I started doing Podstar, it was actually because I've done product marketing for SaaS companies, and most of them are startups at an early stage. So they don't have, the funds to allocate hundred thousands of dollars to paid ads and to buy users in such a way. Because nowadays, as we speak, to get a demo done through LinkedIn, it will cost you around $800. And that's just a demo. It's not a guaranteed client.
Right.
So when I worked with them, and I've seen it that, they post consistently, but their post wouldn't go directly to their ICP. And because being an Israeli startups, founder, as you post, it wouldn't get to Texas, to the ears of the, let's say, CMO that you're trying to sell something to. So the algorithm is not good at all. And the other thing is, I think that companies, when they put their leaders out, they gain more trust. And the trust is what we're after, because nowadays, around 83% of executives are listening to podcasts around 5 hours a week. Wow. And it is known statistics, but the thing is that most of them are actually making buying decisions based on what they hear. Because I don't know about you. I mean, I'm an avid listener because I walk each day around 10,000 steps. But, it actually shapes how I purchase stuff. For instance, it could be a treadmill, it could be a product, it could be a SaaS, a tool. Because when we hear the podcast, we have 45 uninterrupted minutes of consuming content from a leader, from someone that we could arguably say that he is a leader because he's been there, he's in the show. So it is a long way to make trust. It is just like, it's going to serve us well. And I don't know if you're familiar with Google's 7-11-4 rule. Do you know that?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Yeah, Google's 7-11. So Google stated that in order to become your customer, a client would have to go through 7 hours of engagement with your content across 11 touch points in 4 different platforms. And I would say, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot because, we post every day. It could be an Instagram post that would get us to what? 5 seconds of interacting with our brand. A YouTube video would get us to 40 minutes of interacting with our brand. And, 7 hours of engagement, it's a lot. So we need to generate content that actually grab the attention and facilitate it.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Wow. It's really interesting to think about too. I think as a podcast listener, if I'm going for a walk, if I'm driving in the car, and I turn on a podcast, you feel like you have a sense of trust, and it just having someone talk to you for an hour, you start to feel like you know them in a way that's different than just seeing a social media post. I think often we kind of just scroll through, and yes, there are influencers and content creators, and there are a lot of thought leadership pieces going out from CEOs, but it doesn't connect to you as much as listening to them have a conversation with you over audio. And I think what's great about podcasting too is you can bring it with you anywhere. You're not forced to kind of sit and stare at your phone. You can listen to the audio version, and it creates that really strong relationship with the podcaster. It's such an important authority tool. We're seeing such a rise in podcasting and also within websites as well. I think people are going to like blogs and looking for long form content to really feel like they know who they're buying from or who they're listening to or whose content they're consuming. So that's a really great point. With social too, because of the amount of content that's going out on social, it's so easy to forget the content. I mean, if you see an ad or if you see someone's video online, you may listen to it, but you may not remember because it was maybe 30 seconds or less of your time. So that's a really interesting stat and, good for us podcasters. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so when working with companies like TikTok or Microsoft, what's one principle about authority building that really applies to small founders too? We have a lot of digital creators and a lot of small business owners that listen to this show. You can learn a lot from listening to things on like YouTube and, TED Talks, but what's something that someone operating on a smaller scale can relate to? And do you have any advice for them?
So obviously, my advice would just go and speak on podcasts. But the thing is, most people are not prepared. And in their state of mind, they're not ready to go on a podcast because they think that they have to have a certain amount of followers. They are, Forbes 30 under 30, perfect company, or a massive brand. But being honest, all you have to have is a story, a lesson, a transformation that you've been through, or maybe your clients have been through, and a message that will help people, because that's all you need in order to do it, because your story is your authority.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. I think often people feel a little bit intimidated to go on a podcast. When I sit down with any of my guests, I'm always like, "Don't worry, like I can edit this podcast, I can share it with you before it goes live." I want the conversation to be very seamless. People can come across it as an interview, but I try to frame podcasts as a conversation. I think it's more you're hearing someone's story, you're hearing some valuable takeaways. Maybe there's some things you can apply to your own business. Not everybody's comfortable recording videos of themselves, but I think this actually is a nice way to do it because you're also recording it with someone else. So it kind of takes the pressure off of it just being you. But yeah, that's some great advice. One common theme with, small business owners or people that are ready to start a business is just going for it. And you're never going to really actually feel ready to do it. You just kind of have to put yourself out there and do it. If someone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm so ready to start a podcast, or I'm so ready to be a guest on a podcast, I want to use this as a way to build my business, and they really want to build that serious authority over the next maybe year, what would your roadmap really look like for them?
So look, because I already systemized the whole process, I have like the key steps of how to do it. So obviously the first thing is to get to know yourself and what is your value, what do you bring to the table when we discuss in podcast. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to prepare some sort of a media kit that you can pitch yourself with your topics, with even if you ever spoken on camera before, just attach it so people can hear your vibe and hosts can see if you're a good fit or no. And the third thing is to research for the show, because you don't want to go on any show. And there are some scams out there that to be aware, because there are some people that operate podcasts just for the sake of getting paid to play. Mm-hmm. And it's not the kind of podcast that you want to hop on. Eventually, you want to go and speak directly to your audience. So I would strongly suggest to research. And the most simple way to research a podcast is going to listennotes.com. So it's listennotes.com. It's like the Google for podcasts. It's free. And you can see recent episodes, engagement rate, and all of those kind of things. And the third thing is to reach out to a podcast. And to reach out, I have a framework for that. I call it REACH. So R stands for research the show. E stands for extract a personal win or a gain from a recent episode, just to mention it once you outreach the podcast. A stands for align your topics with their audience, because it is a must. Every podcaster has their own guarantee to their listeners. For example, you help people learn how to do branding better, but some shows have a different guarantee or promise to their audience. So you need to align your topics with that. And C is connect with warmth and proof. So you can do it over on LinkedIn or maybe via email. And H stands for handle follow-ups, because follow-ups are essential. So that's the reach. And then you have to speak on a podcast. And that's the easy part, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the fun part. So that's really great advice. I really like how you mentioned too that building that media kit. I think often People who are maybe founders of businesses might think that that's something more so for a digital creator, but now once you are a founder, you kind of step into those shoes a little bit too, because now you are being a founder-led business. So you need to also have that media kit ready. It's so important that you mentioned reaching out to podcasts that align with your business and your business audience. One thing with consistently branding a podcast and speaking with a lot of guests, I do get outreached by a lot of people to be on the show, but I'm always very conscious of who's on my show because I want to make sure that it's useful to the audience. I've actually been podcasting for 5 years now, and I've been really growing with my audience and, teaching them about personal branding and, branding for business. But I really like to be conscious of why they're listening to me, and I want to bring guests of value onto the show. But thinking about that from a business perspective too, you want to be really conscious of how you're spending your time. If you're going to record a podcast, you want to make sure it's reaching the audience that is your target consumer as well. So those are some really great tips. As we wrap up this show, for the founder that maybe feels a little bit behind, maybe like everybody else is louder or more polished, or maybe further ahead in terms of getting their message out there through digital marketing, what would you say to them about building authority in their own way?
Obviously, I'm biased to a certain kind of media, but I would say that, look, I think that genuinely marketing should be done comfortable. You should do it comfortably. You should not be cringed out or feel something bad while doing it, because marketing, when it's done bad, you can feel it. And, it wouldn't get you the same amount of traffic or traction, where you can do it consistently in a right way that, you're comfortable with. So I would say, don't spend money on stuff that you wouldn't be comfortable with. Don't do any marketing motion that you wouldn't be comfortable with. Because, for example, I don't do email outreach to pitch my service to anyone, because that I don't like emails. I don't like, having this spammy folder filled up. That is not the way I do marketing. And I think that, these days when everyone's a marketing guru and you can see everyone just reinventing the way that you should post story or reels and stuff like that, I would arguably say that the best marketing motion that you can do is the one that you can do for a long time. Mm-hmm. So you should be comfortable around what you're doing.
Yeah. That's great advice. Often it can get really overwhelming for people that are looking to dip their toes into content creation for their business, because there's so many avenues. And I like that you mentioned doing something that feels, that you feel comfortable doing, because ultimately the audience can tell when it's something that is that you're comfortable with. It also really, you can really make or break the relationship too by kind of sharing content that you think you're supposed to share versus content that feels aligned to you. So that's a really great tip. I think really just getting started in what feels comfortable to you. It could be podcasting for sure. I think is a great outlet, but if you're more comfortable writing or whatever it may be that feels authentic to your business, will help to connect you with your target consumer in the long run. So really appreciate that advice. And thank you so much, Gal, for being on my show. This was such an insightful conversation. I think a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, and marketers are going to learn a lot about podcasting. This industry has been growing for a while, and I think that there's so much opportunity left to come. Really excited to share this message, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Bex. It's been lovely to be here and speaking to you.
Wow, this has been such an informative conversation. If you're a founder, entrepreneur, marketer, or you're looking to build your own personal brand, maybe you felt like you needed to post daily to stay relevant. Hopefully this episode shifted your perspective. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I will leave a link in the show notes if you're interested in learning more about Podstar and to dive into all of the resources that they have to offer. Rate and review the podcast. It helps us get our message out there, and I'll talk to you guys on next week's episode.